Technical Veterinary Learning Channel, honored by Professor Ahmed Mamdouh El Sherif, Professor of Epidemiology and Infectious Diseases, the ex-head of Department of Veterinary Medicine, the ex-Vice Dean of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Bani Suef University, Egypt, presents today. Today we will speak about an important subject in the epidemiology, experimental epidemiological studies. Experimental epidemiology. In experimental studies of epidemiology, we determined through a controlled process the exposure of each animal or person in a clinical trial or in a population trial, and then tracks them over a time to detect the effect of the exposure. For example, in a clinical trial of any new vaccine, we may randomly assign some of the veterinarians or practitioners to receive new vaccine while others receive placebo shots. We then track all vaccinated animals or human. We get the disease in some animals or human, so this will show is intended to prevent and compare the two groups to see whether the vaccine group has a lower rate of disease or not. So at the end of follow-up period, we describe how the lowest incidence of a disease is reported or not. So, experimental epidemiology means that observe and analyze the data from controlled group we choose and we collect of animals or men. This group which can select and we alter the different factors that affect on them and use one factor for testing. Experimental studies beginning at 1920, and this means at that time study of epidemics among colonies of experimental animals such as rats, mice, and rabbits. Aims of experimental studies is by submitting scientific evidence of cost factor which may allow modification or control of any disease, as well as providing a way to measure effectiveness and efficiency of veterinarian or health services for preventing, controlling, and treating diseases which improving community and population health. If we compare between advantage and disadvantage of experimental studies, we will show that advantage of experimental studies afford proving of causation with lower alignment and using of historical domains with mortality issue are cleared and visibility we can saw everything. But the disadvantage of experimental studies that unsuitable usage of historic control drive to a severe fault and it take long time and expensive in its cost. Experimental epidemiology used in animal studies for confirmation the theory of causation. It is viral or bacterial or fungal or prion and so on. Also, it used to study the pathogenic happening, how it causes the disease. Also, testing the effectiveness of preventive and the treatment measures. Animal studies by experimental way fill up neutralistic history of the disease. Also, it playing a serious function in human seeking for information about himself. It will be take this infection or not. Also, it have contribution to all medicine section. Experimental epidemiology in human studies leads to investigate theory of causation, also evaluate effectiveness of drugs, and fill up neutralistic theory of disease, how it's caused, playing serious function in human vaccine and evaluation. Types of experimental studies: clinical and therapeutic trials, field preventive trials, community and population intervention trial, risk factor trials, cessation of experiments, health service evaluation trials. 8 steps for design the experimental trial. By writing the protocol design, reference population, either animal or human, we will make our experiment. Then take population sample and assumption by make 2 groups, experimental one and control group. Then randomization and manipulation intervention, following up the experiment, and then the last step is estimation of result to show what we are studied. A good examples here about the experimental design is the dogma of randomized control trial, or RCTS. We give an example with one of the vaccine come in the site of all world. It is COVID-19 vaccine. So, application of COVID-19 on trial on patient after ethically inform them about what's going on. Then we divide these patients into 2 groups, vaccinated group and control group. Vaccinated group takes the vaccine, control group have placebo. Then compare the results between vaccinated group results and those come from control group which taken placebo. To reach to acceptable result, this will take time about 1.5 years up to 2 years. All human studies have to be done ethically. Epidemiology series will be continued by TVL channel, so please subscribe this channel to have the rest.